is no light here. You came to the darkness for knowledge.
Elias and the Triune are responsible for summoning Lilith in Diablo 4, and we get to meet a few of their members in Season 5. However, their history goes way back before Diablo 1, and they've had a direct involvement in almost every Sinister event in Sanctuary. In this video, we're going to discuss just that. Way back before the events of Diablo 1, the Triune formed during the time of the Sin War. The Temple of the Triune was split up into 3 different orders, each one paying tribute to its representative guiding spirits. The 3 guiding spirits were Dialon, the spirit of determination, Bala, the spirit of creation, and Mephisto, the spirit of love. Each of these orders had a high priest leading them, and they all reported up to a pope-like figure called the Primus. However, what was hidden from humanity was the fact that the Temple of the Triune was actually a cover for the machinations of the prime evils themselves. Yes, each of these guiding spirits were actually contrasting entities to the actual beings that humanity and members of the temple were praying to, and that were the prime evils. See, Dialon, the spirit of determination, was the cover for Diablo, the Lord of Terror. Bala, spirit of creation, represented Belial, the Lord of Destruction. And then finally, Mephisto, the spirit of love, represented none other than Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred. Around this time, Inarius, who remained on Sanctuary but chose not to interfere with humanity, came back into the picture and started up the Cathedral of Light under the guise of a being known as the Veiled Prophet. And his main focus there was to combat the Temple of the Triune in the shadows. Now, it's important to know that these two battled in the shadows because they did not want to alert the high heavens of the presence of Sanctuary. Because knowing the high heavens, they would see Sanctuary as an impure abomination and elect to completely wipe it out. Now, during this time, Lilith happens to re-enter Sanctuary and awaken the Nephilim. She created an army of these Nephilim who went ahead and ended up toppling the Triune as well as the Cathedral of Light before she got banished to the Void once again by Inarius. Now, at this point, the Triune organization and temple was destroyed. However, the individual members scattered and formed their own covens. Yes, that's right. The coven that we see in Diablo 3 is actually none other than a remnant of the Triune. And 2 key figures make up this coven. One is Adria, the witch, and the second is Maghda. Yes, that butterfly Maghda is actually a human. So what happened was Adria joined this coven and she co-led it with Maghda, and this was prior to the events of Diablo 1. However, after a period of time, Adria grew fed up with the coven because she felt like their goals weren't as lofty as hers. At the time, she heard about the stirrings under the Cathedral of Tristram and decided to relocate there to study it more. During her time, she met Deckard Cain, and through conversations, she learned about Zoltan Kulle and his effort to create a Black Soulstone. She also greatly comforted the Prince Aiden, who was the warrior of Diablo 1, and upon defeating Diablo, he chose to insert Diablo Soulstone in himself, thinking he could contain it. And as Aiden became the Dark Wanderer and emerged from Tristram Cathedral, he took comfort with Adria's company, eventually having her birth a daughter named Leah, who she used for her evil machinations to revive Diablo as the prime evil, which we saw in Diablo 3. Now, the Triune returns as a unified entity in Diablo 4, and that is thanks to one individual, and that is Elias, former member of Herodrum and also known as the Pale Priest. Now, prior to the events of Diablo 4, Elias and the Herodrum heard of Rothma's prophecy and knew that hell was coming. And the leader at the time was Laura, because Tyrael, who did lead the order in the Herodic Vaults and Fractured Keeps, had left it to face the danger out in the west. Elias was Laura's apprentice, and Laura was well known to always alert us when he could that hell was indeed coming, like he did here.
Hell is coming, brother. Hell is coming.
The focus of Lorath, Donan, and Elias, the three remaining members of the Horadrim, was to find a way to combat the Hells, because remember at this point, Malthael in Diablo 3 wiped out close to 90% of humanity, so there wasn't much left to fight back the legions of hell. So Rathma chose to dive deep into history to look for an answer, and what he found were the stories of Rathma, Lilith, Inarius, and creation. Through his research, Elias discovered that the one being who always stood up for children, humanity, and the Nephilim was none other than Lilith herself. During their initial creation, the angels and demons, even Inarius to some degree, were afraid of the Nephilim and their new powers and vowed to get rid of them. Lilith, upon hearing this, broke into a rage and conducted an event called the Purge, where she went ahead and killed all the angels and all the demons save Inarius. And back during the Sin War, when she returned, she didn't choose to side with Hell's army in the Triune or her former lover's army in the Cathedral of Light. No, she chose to side with humanity, empower them, reawaken their Nephilim potential, and topple both of those organizations before Inarius banished her once more. Now, you may think to yourself, well, isn't Inarius back in Sanctuary? Why would Elias depend on him? Well, this is because Inarius cares only about one being, and that is himself. And his opinions on Sanctuary were clearly heard during his battle with Lilith here.
My rightful place is in the heavens.
Is that why you seek to destroy all that we created?
Sanctuary is an abomination!
So at this point, Elias was convinced that Lilith was the answer to stopping the invasion of the Hells. He brought this to Lorath in the Horadrim, and Lorath completely dismissed this idea to the point that Elias chose to leave the Horadrim and conduct his venture on his own. Now, before Elias was to summon Lilith, there were three objectives that he needed to take care of. One, he needed to learn how to summon Lilith. Two, he needed a failsafe in case Lilith's temperament turns her against him upon her summoning. And three, he needed an army because he knew other factions in Sanctuary, including Inarius' Cathedral of Light, will not be so keen about his efforts. First off, the army. Elias knew about the scattered covens and worshippers of the occult. So once he began spreading the word of a demonic blessed mother who would come and empower humanity with their birthright, they flocked to him like sheep to a shepherd. Now that he had his army, Elias now needed that failsafe. He didn't know if that by summoning Lilith, who at that point was trapped in the void for hundreds if not thousands of years, would immediately choose to strike him down. So to do this, and studying Rathma's books on immortality, he found a method to do so. Discovering Rathma's temple, he learned of a ritual that required himself to sacrifice a little piece of himself, in this case his finger, which will grant him immortality. With this being achieved, to get the answer of how to summon Lilith from the void, Elias went to the Tree of Whispers and completed a bargain. Now, the Tree of Whispers will have the answer to any question you may have. However, the price to be paid is your head and your soul for all eternity upon your death. Elias, having cheated death, tricked the Tree of Whispers, because when he dies, he just respawns once more at the Temple of Rathma. What Elias learned from the Tree of Whispers was that there was a gateway to the void in the halls of Dark Portent, which lay underneath an abandoned chapel in Hawazar. This required the blood sacrifice of 3 individuals, and we saw this play out in the introduction cinematic to Diablo 4. The cool thing about this cinematic is that the events and the location, the halls of the Dark Portent, is actually accessible in the game, and you can follow Elias's footsteps in his manipulation of the scholar Simon to get him to conduct the ritual. Now, this all led to the events in Diablo 4 as you know them, and that brings us to where the Triune is today in Season 5. In Season 5, we meet 2 individuals, Lokran and Estelle, and these two are the only remaining members of the Triune who still have loyalty to Lilith's goals, which was to empower humanity to fight against the burning hells. The problem is, the rest of the Triune became tempered and manipulated by being consumed with Mephisto's hatred. That is why we see them summoning the Hell Tides and trying to break the veil to allow Hell to invade Sanctuary. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing, giving the video a like, and commenting with your thoughts. Thank you.